leaders would be elected and put in place that could turn things around and bring this country back to the constitutional republic we know it can be. Want me to pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry, I forgot to say amen. At this time, I'd like to ask Sam to come up here for a minute. Thank you, Joe. Folks, in the back, pay attention, please. Folks, you probably know by now that Jake Bender passed away. His illness was very sudden. The Berks County Patriots want to extend our condolences to Jake's brother Ed, son Steve, and the rest of his family and friends. Jake was one of the original members of the Berks County Patriots. He was on the board since 2010 and held various offices such as treasurer, financial secretary, corresponding secretary. Jake did many things behind the scenes as well. But more importantly, Jake was a true patriot, a true American, a true constitutionalist. Jake was a dear friend of Linda and I, and to many others. Jake was one of a kind and will be truly missed. Most of you remember Jake selling yard signs, hats, shirts in the back. Folks, in memory of Jake Bender, there's a table in the back with free yard signs, window signs, and miscellaneous items. Please, anyone, help yourself on your way out. Now, folks, if you could bow your head for a moment, a silent Jake Bender. Thank you. Thank you all. Turn it back over to Jim. Thank you, Sam. Jake was very passionate about the Berks County Patriots, and I just want to add, we're giving out the yard signs. It doesn't cost you anything to put a sign in your yard to advertise our meetings and get the word out there. We need to grow this organization and organizations like this because we know we need to stand strong against things that are going on in this country. The only way to do that is to unify together. And that message needs to get out. So please, take a yard sign, take a stick, put it in your yard, put it in your son's yard, anywhere you can put one, take them and put them out so the message can get out. People will know when the meeting dates are. They might check out the website and get some information. At this time, I'd like to bring up Carol Gardecki. She's going to give us an update on education.
Hi, everybody. I kind of took the summer off, so now I'm ready to dig in again. I'm starting a new Constitution class. I'm starting back with what I started with 3 years ago. We are going to start with the 5,000-year leap book. We're meeting at a church in Fleetwood, and I have flyers in the back. They look like this. And I have a sign-up sheet in the back if you want to join the class. If you came to my class during the Making of America, but you never did the 5,000-year leap, I think you'll find it very interesting. I think you'll like it. And so think about coming out. I'm only going to do the class on the second Monday of every month. And the first class will be Monday, September 12th. So come on out and learn about the Constitution. Thank you. Oh. I'm at the first table at the wall in the back, and I'm dressed all in red, so you can find me.
Wouldn't that just be like a school teacher to take the summer off? Can you believe that? I'd like to bring Judy. How could we get it, Judy?
Good evening, everyone. Two announcements. I have have the Friends Helping Friends coupons for Boss House for this year. They're $5. You can only use them though on Tuesday, October 18th at any Boss House. Most of the discounts are 25% off any items, so it's a good time to start your Christmas shopping. We do get to keep the whole $5 as a nonprofit, so it would help us. If anyone's interested, I'm at the back table as well, the entrance there. The second, we have surveys back there we'd like you to fill out if you have time. Now, there's 23 items, and I did write to number 1 to 23, but that might be too many. If you could number at least 10 items, topics that you would like to see in the future. We're trying to plan for future events, and would like to get your opinion on what you'd like to have us have here. So pick one of those up at the back as well. Thank you.
It is very important to fill out this survey because here's what happens. I know after every meeting, I probably get 5 or 6 people come up to me with an idea. It's never the same idea. And I know other people out there have an idea, so we're trying to get a consensus of what you guys want to learn about and what you want to hear about. So again, like Judy said, you don't have to fill it out 1 to 23, just pick the top 10 in order that you would want to hear about, and then we'll go through them, and obviously whichever one's number 1 we'll work on, and so on and so forth. At this time, I'd like to ask Linda Brancadora to come up here.
Yeah, I think Sam hit it. Did you, Sam? You hit it. I know you did. No, it's probably home on my desk. Welcome, all these people. Thank you for coming to the Berks County Patriots. Hope you're all keeping cool, either in air conditioning or if you have a pool in the backyard. And listen, if you don't have the air conditioning, you can go to Rod Miller's house and he'll put you up for the night. Right, Rod? Is that okay? Okay.
Check with my wife.
But it sure was a really hot week. The fair was this past week, and many of us helped out at the fair for the GOP. I worked on Thursday and had a heat stroke. Sam had to take me home. It was so hot. When I got home, my clothes were absolutely drenched. And but we stopped at Sally's Steak on the way and got a steak sandwich, and that really helped a lot too. I put a call out for some helpers, for some volunteers to help out tonight, and I'm so happy that people came through. And I want to thank you very much, those of you that came to help, those that are still helping. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. And it does not go unnoticed, because now when you volunteer one time and we need help again, we're calling you. I think that's all. I winged it. I'll probably think of something else, but no matter. Thank you.
And now Sam has some news about the November election officer. So, Sam?
Thank you again, Jim. Hi, folks. I'm going to talk about the general election. I'm a Republican, so this will be partisan. My views are not necessarily the views of the Berks County Patriots. And for my Democratic friends, I mean no disrespect. I see Representative Caltagirone in the back with the first winners. I know quite a few others are in here. Folks, no disrespect, and actually, you might find some of this very interesting. John Adams. Okay, folks, the primary is over. We have 2 main candidates for president. Clinton, obviously, for the Democrats, Trump for the Republicans. Just for the record, I lost. My first choice was Ted Cruz. Now, there is some turmoil within the Democratic Party, on the Bernie Sanders crowd. However, I don't expect that's going to really amount to anything unless they decided a large number to vote for Libertarian or the Green Party. On the other hand, there's great turmoil within the Republican Party. We have a great divide that could lead to defeat if we do not get our act together and unite. Some folks say they're going to resign from the Republican Party. Some say they will vote for a third party. Some say they will stay home. Well, let's take a look at some of those options. Let's say you normally have 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats that vote their party. In that case, you'd have 50 votes for Clinton, 50 votes for Trump, tie, no winning. But let's say one of those Republicans decides they're going to vote for a third party. All right, your vote then is going to be 50 Clinton, 49 Trump, one other. Clinton wins by one vote. Or possibly you have one of those Republicans, for whatever reason, decides to stay home. Well, first of all, they're giving up the option of voting for all the other candidates on the ballot. And the end result, there would be 50 Clinton, 49 Trump. Clinton wins by one. Folks, for every vote that Trump does not get, that is one less vote that Clinton needs. So also, any of those options I just mentioned benefits Clinton, and it's the same as you voting for Clinton. Okay, I'm sure you know my position. My position is I do not want there being a President Hillary Clinton. Before Obama, our country was morally on the wrong course. It lost its moral compass. With Obama, that has accelerated. With Clinton, that will accelerate even further. Some may say, well, when did we lose our moral compass and start going the wrong way? Well, for most of us, for quite a few of us, it was 1962, 1963. Anyone want to say what happened in those years? Actually, there were 3 Supreme Court rulings, 62 and 63, that took God and prayer out of school. These 3 rulings are wrong. They should be reversed. They are 180 degrees off course. They do not represent what our founding fathers meant when they submitted the Bill of Rights in 1789, which included freedom of religion. Folks, you know that Presidents Thomas Jefferson and James Madison both attended Christian services in the very chamber that the U.S. Congress met, now called Statutory Hall. Not only were church services held in the U.S. House on Sundays, but for generations, the Capitol was transformed weekly into the largest church on the East Coast. They came, they prayed, they sung hymns, and they worshiped God. Folks, how then could a 1962 Supreme Court so badly misinterpret the phrase separation of church and state when the very person they credited to attended church services in the U.S. Capitol, and the Capitol was turned into a church on Sunday? I don't know. It's certainly mind-boggling. Do you know that U.S. Supreme Court starts every session with prayer? Why not schools? Do you know that the U.S. Senate starts every session with a prayer? Again, why not schools? And do you know that the House of Representatives starts every session with a prayer? Again, why not schools? I looked up the prayer for my birthday, July 25th. It started with, "Gracious and loving God,
and ended with, "In the name of God, we pray, amen." Folks, why can't we say those words at school? Okay, why am I spending so much time talking about the Supreme Court? Well, for some of us, this election is much less about the president and more about the Supreme Court. When the three branches of government were established, the Supreme Court was considered the weakest. Today, it is the strongest. It can undo any law that the legislative branch passes. It can undo any executive order or regulation or almost anything that the president does. Unfortunately, instead of a neutral court and following the original intent of our Constitution and doing what's best for our country, it's become an activist court, as many federal courts are throughout the land. Those on the other side, for the most part, do not try to advance their causes through legislation or constitutional amendments. They have a better chance by filing cases in a court system and getting a federal judge or a Supreme Court to rule in their favor. Folks, for this reason, I don't think there will ever be another constitutional amendment. I want to tell you about a ruling in the Supreme Court just a few weeks ago. The Supreme Court blocked a lower ruling that would have let a transgender Virginia student use the boys' bathroom, female by birth. By the way, this issue is much broader than you might think. Some consider this a victory. It would be if it was the final Supreme Court ruling, but it wasn't. It was just a temporary stay, and the swing vote, Justice Breyer said he was agreeing to the stay as a courtesy because the court was in recess, not because he's in favor of the lower court ruling. This will come before the Supreme Court after the election and after the next president fills the 9th vacancy. Currently, we have 4 left-leaning judges on the Supreme Court, 3 right-leaning, and 1 flipper. Folks, I don't like saying left or right-leaning. They should all be neutral. They should all be doing what's best for our country, but they're not. Therefore, as a Republican, if you exercise any of the options I mentioned earlier, you're not only giving Clinton 1 vote, you're most likely voting for the bathroom bill, its aftermath, and many others that will come. Folks, it doesn't stop there. During the next president's term, in addition to filling the Supreme Court vacancy, most likely the new president will appoint 1 to 3 others to the U.S. Supreme Court. Wow. Can you imagine what that Supreme Court's going to be like? In addition, the Supreme Court is extremely important. As I said, the most important branch in the land. However, in addition, the president will appoint hundreds of federal judges throughout the country. That's extremely important as well. Is anyone here interested in the Second Amendment? Actually, I shouldn't have said it like that. Of course, I know most of you are. But specifically, the individual right to bear arms, I know most of us are. Well, do you know that in 2008, that right, individual right to bear arms, was affirmed by a narrow 5-4 vote. 1 vote. It would be more. Now, what do you think President Clinton would do? What do you think her appointment would do? What do you think her philosophy is as far as the Second Amendment? Folks, you don't have to think. You don't have to think. She told us. Leaked audio from a Clinton fundraiser in 2015 revealed Clinton telling donors, quote, "The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment," unquote. She's referring to the 5-4 verdict. Naturally, she wants to overturn that. So folks, there's a lot at stake at this election.
I personally feel that anything that's in the Constitution, constitutional amendment, which will not happen. I refer to the above cases because they've been in news lately. However, there are many other issues we need to be concerned with. Folks, our founding fathers put in the Constitution that the Supreme Court judges, quote, shall hold their offices doing good behavior. What that means is they're there for life. They're there for life or until they want to retire. Let me ask you a question. Well, first of all, there were 35. Well, before I get into that, what do you think the life expectancy was when they put our Constitution together in 1787? Anyone want to take a guess? What was the life expectancy? 45? 45? Okay. This was hard for me to believe. Still is. I looked it up. 38. Life expectancy was 38. Now, bear in mind, when they're putting the Constitution together and they're saying this, they're figuring a life expectancy of 38, stretching it somewhat. How long have people gone to the Supreme Court? A few years. Well, folks, we've had justices on the Supreme Court for 35 years, 36 years, 37 years. This election is so important. Therefore, you can expect any appointments that are made now could serve over 40 years. You now may understand why some of us consider this election much more important, the Supreme Court is, than the presidency. There is talk. What is morally right? What is morally wrong? Folks, there's nothing morally wrong with voting for a candidate if you think he or she will do more good for the nation than his opponent. In fact, it is the morally right thing to do. Some people talk about the lesser of evils. Please think about that. It could be considered more morally wrong if you don't stop it, if you do nothing. I have a little homework for you. I want you to select 5 things that are important to you that, from the standpoint of our country, that our country needs that you think, as I said, will be important. 5. Then what I want you to do is evaluate Clinton on those 5. 1 to 5. 1 being least helpful she would be, 5 being most helpful. Evaluate each one of those and see what ranking you get for her. After you're done, now, first of all, she's flip-flopped on many issues, but so has all the other candidates, so that's not a criteria. There is nothing that Clinton can do that would surprise me. I know exactly what she's going to do. We all know what she's going to do. So there's not too much guesswork when you go through this list to put these together. On the other hand, Donald Trump. We don't know a lot about him, so you can't evaluate exactly the same way. So what I want you to do is, I want you to, for each one of those, look at, if you gave Clinton a 3, then you ask yourself the question, will Trump be better or worse than that 3? And you do that for each of the 5. Possibly, that might help you to form an opinion. I'm just about done. In conclusion, the U.S. Supreme Court and their rulings will have a far greater impact on our freedoms and our liberties and our guaranteed rights than a 4 or 8 year term than a president. Folks, the Supreme Court is the front line, and the first battle is to unite and to defeat Clinton. God bless you all. God bless our country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam. And in defense of some of my Democrat friends, he's here, Chris Winters in the back there. Wave your hand, Chris. Well, I'm a Republican, he's a Democrat. We can all get along. We go to hunting camp every year together. And we drink beer, and we have high-powered weapons, and we're both here today. So we can actually get along.
I just can't hit.
And he can't shoot a deer anyway, so. At this time, I'd like to ask Tom to come forward, Tom Caltagirone. If you don't know Tom Caltagirone, he is our representative in the 127th, correct? City of Reading is mostly his district. Tom's a good man, known him for a while. He has to put up with Chris just like I do, so I don't know how he does that, but we make do in life, so. Tom.
Thank you. I'm not going to speak on the elimination of the school district property tax. There's enough frustration that we've suffered over the years with that, and either Democrats or Republicans, and aren't fighting for total elimination. And it's still hanging there. It's like within reach, but we just can't pull it off the tree. But I haven't given up that fight. You have my word on that. I've got to continue to fight that fight. But what I would like to share with you tonight, very briefly, is just a couple pages of some thoughts about the heroin opioid addiction that we're suffering with, not just in this area, but in this nation. First, to understand the connection between opioid prescription drugs and the heroin crisis, we need to understand what an opioid is. We all remember that heroin is refined from opium, which comes from a type of unripe poppy. Opium products like heroin or morphine work the way they do because molecules in them fit nicely into our brain's pain receptors. By fitting nicely into the parts of our brain that create what we call pain, they deaden that pain. Unfortunately, there are so many good things that are going on with this problem that they need to take more of them over time, and one high after another, and they become addicted. This is the beginning of the addiction process. Opioids work the way they do by also fitting their molecules into these brain receptors, but they also tend to be perfect strength and purity to do their job as they were intended to. The word opioid literally means similar to opium. Unfortunately, if we take an opioid drug long enough, the addiction process can also take hold. Now, if we take them for as long as the pain lasts, and I think everybody in this room has taken some type of prescription drug at some point in your life, every single one of us. Now, we take them long enough as the pain lasts, and if they're so cheap that we didn't need insurance to pay for them, we might be in the clear. But life isn't like that. Our pharmaceutical companies have decided several things about the way they market opioid drugs. They keep them fairly expensive by constantly coming up with new opioid drugs so that they don't go off patent, so that generic pharmaceutical companies can compete with them on price. This is one huge, and they have recently changed the so-called standard of care for opioids. These drugs were originally intended to be administered inside the hospital under the close supervision of physicians who could help to avoid too frequent a large dosage and addiction. A few years ago, a member of my staff had skin cancer surgery on his arm. They gave him Vicodin, an opioid drug, in the recovery room. The surgery was outpatient. He was sent home that same day. Guess how many Vicodins he took? One. He took only one more, and then he switched to over-the-counter Tylenol. Guess how many Vicodins they sent home with him? 30, with renewals. He properly disposed of them legally, but imagine if he decided to resell them on the black market, or to become addicted himself. But what if the pain issue is chronic, long-lasting, and not short-term like the result of a surgical procedure? And what if the pain sufferer loses his or her job and health insurance? When a patient with chronic pain has become legally addicted to a prescription opioid drug, take a guess as to what their frequent choice of a substitute is. Street quality heroin. Our modern heroin problem isn't a bunch of long-haired, heavy metal junkies like it was in the 1960s. It's Aunt Mildred, who is neuralgia, lost her job, and even worse, it might be your friend Joey, who got curious about the pills in the medicine cabinet when his dad was sent home with 30 Vicodin. And today, Aunt Millie and Joey are ending up dead and in the newspapers. The big pharmaceutical companies knew that the change of standard of care from the inpatient to the outpatient was risky, both by increasing quantity of these drugs out there to be potentially misused, and reducing the quality of care in administering them. I think we can all imagine how tempting redosing too early or with too much medication might be if the pain is returning faster or nastier than the patient expects. There are other classes of pain medications that are not addictive, some of which we see advertised on TV. But one is already available as a cheaper generic, and the other soon will be. So their huge profit days may be coming to an end. And believe me, it is all about profits. Our opioid problem creates the heroin problem. And bad decisions by our pharmaceutical companies have helped to create the opioid problem. My resolution asking the State Attorney General to investigate the big pharma companies is simply connecting the dots. Remember the old question, what did they know? When did they know it? And it's time to find out. And believe it or not, years ago, they did advertise that these were non-addictive drugs, only to find out later on that they were very, very addictive. And, you know, I know we have our VA here, law enforcement, and I'm sure they're going to speak about the problems that they're confronted with. But I heard a statistic this week that close to 25% of the total population in this country has some type of addiction. And when you look around what's happening right in our own backyard, and you see the number of arrests and prosecutions, and the follow-up to what happens there, they lose their jobs. They now have a strike against them. So that it's even more difficult, whether they get incarcerated or not, to get a job, keep a job, take care of their family, pay their bills. And who does it fall on? Seniors like us. The children, the grandchildren, you know what I'm talking about. And then it's how do you support them and maintain your own lifestyle? I mean, it's a disease, it's a crisis that we're facing in this country. We've got to do more. Thank you, and I'll be willing to answer any questions later.
I must apologize and bring Dean Klopp up now. I have to face reality, folks. I'm 53 years old, and I recently got prescription glasses, and I hate them. And my arms aren't long enough up here. I can read this out here, but up here I can barely see what's on there. So I'm catching up to you, Ed. I'm going to turn this over to Dean and bring the screen over all.
Thanks a lot, Jim. A couple weeks ago, I just turned 50, and I can tell you these reading glasses come in real handy myself. But question for y'all. School property tax, does that have you seeing red? That's why I wore my red shirt today. And I just want to thank the work that Tom Caltagirone has done on this bill. And, you know, I'm sure he's going to continue to fight for it. But let me ask you something. This is totally unscripted. Do you expect our legislators to fight harder than you and I will? And I'm just asking you. You don't have to answer that out loud. But folks, we need to create an environment in Harrisburg with representatives all over the state where they're uncomfortable to go back and face their constituents if they're not willing to support this bill. We know our Berks County legislators are on board, and I think they all deserve a round of applause. Thank you. So I had the distinction distinct honor to share with you words from David Baldinger tonight. I have a small presentation of my own, a little slideshow, but if you don't mind, I'm sure we would all like to hear from David Baldinger. It's been quite a while. And he just put this out in an email blast, I believe, earlier today. But an important action item he wants me to share with you guys. First off, there was a man by the name of Brian Fake up in the Poconos. He's been very active and a dedicated leader on David's Facebook page. He's posted so many things and helped us in so many ways, but he's posted an online petition. And I know most of you have probably signed a petition either for me or in the back of the room or at some point in time, but this is a brand new petition. We're gathering signatures statewide, and these are going to be sent to various legislators and also the governor at the appropriate time. So he would ask if that everyone's voice is heard in this endeavor. Please take a few moments, go on David's Facebook page. If you're not on Facebook, go to his webpage. And there's a link there to sign the online petition. While you're on the petition site or on the web page or Facebook page, look for the blog tab at the top of the page. It contains heartbreaking true stories from families who have faced difficult struggles because of relentlessly rising school property taxes. Maybe some of you can share a story as well, and David asks you to share your story on this blog to help lawmakers understand that there's real pain being caused by their reluctance to get this deal done. We can win with your help. The next part of the email blast is called Cowardly Betrayal. I think I've been up here enough, and you've heard from Sam and others over the last 6-7 months who those cowards were. But in case you don't know, I'm going to remind you. 2 Democrats, Senator John Blake from Lackawanna around Wilkes-Barre-Scranton, he bailed at the last minute. Senator Wayne Fontana from Allegheny County, including parts of Pittsburgh, he didn't even show up for the vote, folks. He decided to go to a fundraiser for himself at $1,000 a plate. So that's where he was on November 23rd instead of voting. Republicans, no better. Senator Kim Ward and from Westmoreland County, and you know we've been involved out there. Senator Thomas McGarrigle from Chester and Delaware County, and our beloved Senate Majority Leader, Jake Corman. Let's not forget those names. So I'm just going to move right along. I don't think I need to rehash that. But we also know that there's lobbyist influence, okay? We've discussed that here from the podium. But David said, since we believe that special interest interference contributed to the SB 76 defeat back in November, it is worthwhile to give you some insight into how these greedy, power-hungry lobbyists distort and twist the legislative process for their own self-serving benefit, regardless of how their actions harm taxpayers. There is a link to this true story available once again on David's website. Please take a few minutes to read it. It will enrage you and make you even more committed to winning this fight. Where we stand. At our request, HB 76 has not been formally introduced into the House, and the legislation's prime sponsor, Representative Jim Cox, and House Majority Leader Dave Reed have honored that request. We feel there are insufficient votes for passage there, and introducing the bill before we are prepared is an invitation for opponents to rush the bill to the House floor in an attempt to defeat it. We're working toward another vote on SB 76 in the Senate, but we are taking our time and will not allow it until we are certain that we have enough votes for passage and that there will be no more turncoats like the special interest owned senators who flipped their vote at the last minute in November. They betrayed the people and killed the bill back then. It is possible that we could pick up 2 more Senate votes in the very near future with the upcoming elections. But we may have to wait until after that when we have new supporters. We talked about a man from Cumberland County, Mike Regan. He supported our bill in the House, voted for our bill, sponsored the bill. He's running, as far as I know, unopposed as a senator in Cumberland County. That's another vote, folks. And then we'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about where we believe we can get our next vote. We are far from finished. As of several weeks ago, Senator Richard Alloway from Adams, Cumberland, Franklin, York County jumped into a PTCC Facebook discussion about legislative supporters with this good Democrats and good Republicans. We're so close to accomplishing this. Please keep up the pressure. This is coming from a senator, from a state senator. Please keep contacting your lawmakers. Don't stop. Do it on a frequent basis. They need to know that HB SB 76 is vital for you and others, and that you expect their support. Don't be afraid to call them every day if you like, and have your family, friends, and neighbors contact them too. We will not quit until we win this fight. It is so urgent for so many people that we cannot afford to slow down even for a minute. And Jim, at that point, I think I'd like to do my slide presentation, if you don't mind. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, Rod, Paul. Okay, here is the website, folks, www.ptcc.us. If you don't already know it, please write it down. That's David Waldinger's website, where you can find the blog and whatnot. But as many of you know, and I heard that Shirley and Tom Moser gave a tremendous speech last month, an update on what we've been up to, so I won't rehash all of that, but we have had a fantastic time in the Hershey-Harrisburg area over the last 5 weeks, and all because of this man.
Rob, you blind.
Senator Rob, you blind, Teplitz. And that's exactly what he did to each and every one of you and every Pennsylvanian back on November 23rd. This man is a roadblock to our bill. He's no good on most issues. And folks, we are dead set on getting the word out there. We're going to spend every other Saturday from now until the weather's no good, and we're just going to keep pounding the streets of Harrisburg, Hershey, all the surrounding areas, Dauphin County, Perry County, and we've been at it for 3 Saturdays now. We had a great time. This is when Shirley and Tom were up, our kickoff event. I'm sorry, Shirley and Charlie. I'm sorry. We had so many Toms and Charlies, and I apologize. Very sorry. But we had a great day. Weather was great. We had 21, 22 volunteers, something like that, show up. And we met outside of Hershey, Hummelstown, and that's where, when we hit the streets, we have maps printed out, Google Maps, make it very easy for people to understand where to go, what streets to go to. But then we also have the option of hitting the local shopping centers as well, which we find is very productive. There's that first group, that first week. Ed, boy, you really like to be seen, don't you, Ed? Ed's got his arms outstretched there, stop clowning around with school property tax, and that sign goes with us just about everywhere we go.
Someone photoshopped that.
Okay. Last minute instructions from John McCartney. He's one of the leaders, been around a long time, working on this bill for 10 or more years, and like a lot of people here in this room, and he came from Chester, Lancaster County. He, like so many others, have traveled crisscross across the state to the four corners with us making an impact in different legislative districts. So we went about our business, got last minute instructions, and this is the kind of reaction that we get, by the way, when we confront Robus Flying Teplitz. He does not like to see us, hear from us. In fact, he gets so upset. You can see he's got his hand outstretched. When he gets really angry, he starts talking about how tall his imaginary friend is from the PSCA. Anyway, so I just had to include that because I love talking to Rob. But where does his influence come from? He doesn't care about the people of Dauphin County. He doesn't care about you or what you're paying. In fact, I can tell you Rob isn't even from Pennsylvania. He's got a rich family back in near Miami, Florida. He accuses us of being not in his district. Well, he's not even from Pennsylvania. This is what's lining his pockets, folks. 40 grand in the last election, and he did such a good job for him, voting no twice in this session, the last 2 sessions, that they've already given him $52,000 so far for this election. He's up for election in November. See where I'm going with this, folks? This is a guy that is on the brink. If we can get the word out there and let people know, his constituents, what he's about and how he does not support their property rights. So, sorry, that one got twisted. But this, I just had to show this. I wish it was right side up. I couldn't figure out how to do it. But this man cannot stand Rob Teflis. I said, you mind if I take your picture, sir? He said, no, go ahead. But he, like so many others, when we were out and about, signed our petition. In fact, to date, over 3 Saturdays, we collected between 700 and 800 new petitions. Folks, we reached 2,500 homes and individuals the last 3 weeks. Folks, those are powerful numbers. When you talk about an election coming up, the separation of from what we understand, Rob's last election, he only won by something less than 2,000 votes. Folks, if we can reach 2,500, 5,000, 10,000 people, 20,000 people, and this is just part of our game. This is our ground game. We always have a good time. We meet up afterwards, right, Shirley? We have a little fellowship, time beforehand, time after. And really, I gotta tell you, my main goal here today is to ask you all for help. We need help. Because there's people out there every Saturday. We've been out 32 Saturdays in the last 25 months, folks. A lot of people, a lot of the same people, a lot of new people are coming out. And we need that, we love that, we appreciate that. So we're just going to keep going. Of course, you know these guys, Berks County Patriots, and I think Sam took this picture last month when they were here giving the update, and we appreciate their help as well. So we went out again a couple Saturdays ago, finished off Hershey, covered at least half of the Hummelstown area, and we had another great group. See a little different, some of the same people again. You see the Greths are there, Lynn Buchard, some new faces. We had some locals in the game this time around, and that's very exciting when we have local people come out with us. But we did the same thing. We hit the streets, but we went to shopping centers this time, even more so than before. There's people that just don't want to walk that far, and we understand that. But you know what? We take them to a place where people come to you, right, Shirley? Right, Charles? And this is Elsie Lehman from Lebanon, and she just had a great time meeting people coming in and out of the shopping center. There's some people you guys might recognize, Berks County Patriots. And this is Ed Bender. And I know most of you know Ed, but I gotta tell you, he is a machine when it comes to talking to people. He is relentless. He doesn't stop for lunch. He doesn't stop to mess around. He is all over the parking lots, from one car to the next. And we used to have we still do, we have a little competition. Whoever comes up with the most petitions, you know, during a campaign like this, we get him a t-shirt. Well, I don't know that anyone's gonna break Ed's record. He broke the record of 43 in one day for one person to collect petitions and signatures. Ed, how many did you have? 60 in one day. That is just tremendous. Thank you, Ed. There's Elsie having a good time. And this is what we're trying to do to Rob. We're trying to get his attention. Do we want to see him leave office? I don't know. That's up to the voters to decide. But we want him to, somehow, we want another vote in the Senate. Whether it's him or his opponent, John DeSanto, I'm here to tell you that he just gave us written confirmation, folks. Gave us written confirmation that he will not only support 76, if he's elected to the Senate, he will vote for it. We have it in writing, and he knows that we'll hold him accountable if he doesn't. Both Rob and John are going to be invited to town hall meetings that we have scheduled coming up in September in Dauphin County, October in Perry County, and we're going to put it on the line with these guys, and they're going to have to face their constituents. If Rob decides to show up, I'll bet you $1 you don't. His opponent's going to look like a rock star. I don't know. What do you guys think? Especially if he's supporting the bill. So we're laying the table and asking people to come out. So this was last Saturday, and I don't know if you remember, last Saturday was so oppressive. And we only had about a dozen people come out, so we stuck to the shopping centers and we cut it off at noontime because we didn't want people keeling over. Ed led the effort because I had to go get ready to take my oldest son to college, but I was able to get out there and help these guys get started. And they just combed the shopping centers, the different malls out there, boosted our numbers. There's another lady, Grace Tripmatter from Chester, Lancaster County. There's John McCartney. This guy's been with us, I think, 31 out of 32 Saturdays over the last 25 months, driven all over the place. And he was also like a machine. He wouldn't even let people get out the door. Before he was asking them to sign a petition. Not suggesting you all do that, okay? There's Marty Moser from Pottstown. She came out with us. There's Ed again. He's everywhere. There's Marty again. Like a virus, yes. So why are we doing this? This is our ground game. Yeah, we're getting the word out there. We're handing out flyers. 2,500 people we reached in the last 5 weeks, but this is just our ground game. But it all leads up to this, a town hall meeting. After we start running color, full-page ads, half-page ads, we start doing direct mailers by the thousands to the right districts, to swing districts and precincts. And I can't mention yet who, but we have been offered radio advertisement for our town hall meetings that are going to come up. So all of this builds and builds, folks, just like we did last summer, if you remember, in Pottstown. That's where these pictures are taken from. And there's our VP, Ron Bolts, who's kind of taken over as the spokesperson for the 76 presentation since David's been ill. But there's Linda Brancadora signing people in at the door. We always thank Linda for her help in that regard. But we pack a room, folks. Full-page color ads, direct mailers. Now we're going to have radio ads. This room down at the Montgomery County Community College in Pottstown, I'm thinking we had upwards of 250 people. Sam, what do you think? It was at least 225. And we put these guys on the spot. When the full-page ads ran, I want to tell you something. Two Republicans, I consider wishy-washy Republicans on the bill, Senator Rafferty and Senator Mensch, they were not fighting for us. They were not pushing for us. Their constituents hadn't even heard of the bill. As soon as we ran the ads claiming that they were not publicly supporting the bill, and I wish I had the picture here, they asked Dave Arnold to have a press conference, and they had big colored glossy pictures taken of them signing on as sponsors for the bill immediately after the ads. Folks, you can't buy that. I mean, that is just tremendous support. On top of that, Representative Hennessy sent Jim Cox a letter within 2 hours at the end of this town hall asking to be a sponsor of HB 76. Folks, that's the power of a town hall. That's the power of what we're doing here. We're following a confrontational model. I know Dave Pridgeon was here to talk about that a month or two ago. But folks, this works. We hold these people accountable, and we're going to continue doing it. When we're done, Rob's either going to look like this or he's going to get on board. One or the other. I don't know. We think it's his choice. So once again, there's David's website, and that's it for the video presentation. I have a little bit left to finish up with David, if that's all right.
Want me to hand you down?
Yes, please. Yeah, that's probably the most important thing I can do here today. We need help, folks. Thank you, Ed. These are sign-up sheets. If you folks would like to come out with us, any given Saturday, we're coming out again not this Saturday, but next Saturday, August 27th. We're also going to be hitting the streets of Paxtonia, Colonial Park. Don't worry, it's not Labor Day weekend. That's the following weekend. We're going to be out again September 10th, September 24th, October 8th, October 15th, and the 29th. Folks, we're going to be relentless here. We have a shot here of getting a second vote in the Senate if either Rob wakes up or if his constituents decide to vote for someone else who does support our bill. So that's really the name of the game, folks. Please consider coming out with us, even if it's for a couple hours. If you don't want to go door to door, great. We'll put you at a shopping center somewhere, just like Shirley and Charles did, and they had tremendous success. We can be very effective in that regard as well. So I'd ask you guys to consider volunteering and helping us out in that regard. Okay, I'd like to finish up with what David had to say, if I still have a couple minutes. Thank you. David wants us to know, we are still growing. The Pennsylvania Coalition of Taxpayer Associations, the PCTA, is now 87 nonpartisan taxpayer groups strong. That support the enactment of House Bill 76 and Senate Bill 76. We welcome our newest allies in the fight for property tax independence, and I can tell you there's a lot of people here that are responsible for that, because we made the trip out west to Westmoreland County over the winter, and we woke these people up. They are Indiana County for property tax freedom, Indiana County, Pennsylvania against unfair reassessment, and Indiana Armstrong Patriots. Folks, we woke them up out there by making those trips hundreds of miles back and forth over the winter, and we've got 3 new groups that join our cause through it. And for more growth, the PTCC Facebook page is now almost 10,000 members strong. That's phenomenal. The page always has the latest news and an active discussion about the property tax fight. So if you're a Facebook subscriber, please join us. Here's some encouraging words, and I'll finish up. Finally, if you are impatient and discouraged because the Property Tax Independence Act hasn't been enacted in a few weeks or a few months, remember that this law is a major paradigm shift for Pennsylvania. The current property tax system has great momentum. It's been entrenched for 150 years. Affecting a massive change like HB 76 is not easily accomplished, especially when it is opposed by powerful special interests that benefit handsomely from the current system. Like we said, Wow was taking mega bucks from the teachers union. We have been fighting this battle for more than a decade. We have made tremendous progress since we began in 2004, and I believe we are on the very edge of success. We need to continue to push ourselves as hard as possible to win. We can do it. Consider this, 100 years ago, a similar major paradigm shift was seen in the women's suffrage movement. It took almost 50 years for women to gain the right to vote, but the untiring advocates were persistent, steadfast, and unshakable. They never wavered, and with perseverance, they won the battle. There's no reason why we can't do the same. With our massive support base and with the progress we've already made, it will certainly not take that long. We are almost there. Folks, keep fighting and never give up. David, thanks everyone for your continued support for the Property Tax Independence Act. Your efforts are helping to ensure a brighter future for all Pennsylvanians and are making our state a better place to live. David Baltimore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. At this time, I'd like to ask our District Attorney, John Adams, and Sergeant Liberace. Did I say that right? Yes, sir. All right. And they're going to continue this thing on heroin. And I'd just like to say, my best friend, 50 years he's actually been my friend. We grew up together as little nippers. He just lost 2 nephews to heroin. One of them was a Mensa Society genius, and he did start out with a back problem and couldn't get medication anymore, and he got on heroin and died. And about 3 weeks later, his other nephew from his other sister died, and on his wife's side. So it was his nephew on his side and on his wife's side. So one on each side, and they happened within 3 weeks of each other. So it affects every one of us. Every one of us. I mean, I know people that, you know, you would never suspect, oh, this family would never have that. Well, that's wrong. If you're thinking that, it's wrong. It affects each and every one of us somewhere along the line. So this time I'd like to turn the microphone over. You want to come up here?
Good evening. As you may or may not know, my name is John Adams, and I'm the District Attorney of Berks County. We have a presentation tonight, myself and Sergeant Liberace of my drug task force regarding the heroin problem that we have, not just in Berks County, but quite frankly, through most of the United States. This is a huge, huge problem. It's not just here in Berks County. It is by far really affecting Pennsylvania, all the northeastern states, and frankly, most of the states in the United States. We have seen an unprecedented amount of drugs on my desk of people that work for or associates or members of Mexican drug cartels. But this individual I'd like to highlight here. You see, just like gangster rap, Mexican drug cartels have their own type of music, okay? It's called narco corridor singers. And this individual is very infamous. His name is Gerardo Ortiz. And the reason why he's infamous is because he associates with one cartel, and then other cartels don't like it so much, so when they have the opportunity to retaliate, he's a target of assassination a couple different times. And these are actually pictures of a crime scene in Colombo, Mexico that took place on March 20th of 2011. I can tell you he was just in the news not too long ago, world news. They tried to assassinate him 3 or 4 times. And again, this is Gerardo Ortiz from Colombo, Mexico. And I want to show you this. It's a video of Gerardo Ortiz in concert. That's enough of that. But can anyone guess where that is? You think that's in Mexico City? Where do you guys think that would be? Italy? How about that? Can you see that at the bottom? The Greater Expo Center right here in Bloomberg. Now I can tell you, we knew he was coming. Okay, we got a very good intelligence unit, and we were ready for violence to break out. We had our people out there, and I can tell you the parking lot was jam-packed. License plates from all over the place. And I'm thinking to myself, and so should you be, why would Gerardo Ortiz come here? But for an audience, right? He wouldn't come here. It's like, you guys didn't go to the concert, did you? No, right? So why do you think he's here? There's an audience for this, right? He caters to Mexican drug cartels, and the place is packed. They're here, folks. These are a few of the gangs that are currently operating here in Berks County. I'm not going to get into all of them. I kind of condensed this PowerPoint presentation to about 35, 40 minutes. So, but I can tell you this, they're spread throughout the county, not just the city. They're a significant outlet for illegal substance, including diversion of prescription medication. That's starting to become a big moneymaker. Prescription meds, okay? They utilize violence to maintain and gain status within the drug culture. They utilize violence to maintain and increase market share. They utilize violence to resolve disputes, eliminate potential threats. They utilize violence to impose responses on victims and society, such as not cooperating with law enforcement. I can tell you that is our main target right there. Criminal street gangs, criminal enterprises. That is the direction that John Adams puts us in, to target these guys. We are their predators. I can sit here all day and give you stats, but we all know the illegal drug trade drives crime, it drives property crimes and thefts committed to procure money to buy drugs, it drives violent crime committed to protect and acquire drug market. I can't tell you how many shootings are responding to. But this is why we're all here, this is why the conversation started right here, these statistics. You see, that's what got the conversation started. In 2011, just like you saw in the graph in the beginning, we started seeing a spike of heroin deaths as a result to heroin overdose. And it's going up every year, as you can see, 17 in 2011, and then in 2015, the third. But the numbers behind the numbers are what's really revealing. And these numbers don't do it justice. And the reason I say that, even though these numbers are what got the conversation started, I can tell you that but for advances in first aid and medical technology, we'd be doubling these numbers. I can listen to my police radio on a daily basis without fail. There's a call that goes out for an overdose, and our people are saving lives. I can tell you those numbers would be much more inflated without our first responders. And the other statistic that I put in there that we're starting to see, and I think is going to be the next epidemic, is the first time ever we are starting to see that we're having overdose deaths with methamphetamine. The streets are starting to be flooded with methamphetamine now, and unfortunately, we're going to see the consequences of that here in the near future. This statistic I like to read because it actually changed, or actually started the foundation of the law. But it says, over 80% of heroin users ingest with a partner, I'm sorry. Yet over 80% of overdose victims when found by paramedics are found alone. So 80% of people use with somebody else, but yet 80% of the victims are found by themselves. Why do you think that is? Exactly. Us, right? They don't want law enforcement. They don't want to get in trouble. Well, because of that, our legislators enacted this. It was signed into law on September 30th of 2014 by Governor Corbett. It's Senate Bill 1164. I'm not going to read all of it, but basically it's legislation providing immunity from prosecution for individuals who take certain actions to respond to an occurrence of a drug overdose. Basically, if you follow certain criteria, and it's happened, it's a good law. You follow certain criteria, when we show up, we can't arrest you. The flip side of that was this. They also, under this, Section 2506 is directly under homicide, as drug delivery resulted in death. And basically, if we can prove that you gave something to somebody and that substance caused their death, we can charge you with this. It gives a 40-year statutory prison time. And our John's assistant district attorneys are pretty vigilant with this. We have at least 2 active cases right now, and probably more coming. This is I want to read a part of an affidavit of probable cause, just to give you a glimpse of how this problem is. This is a joint case that we did with Montgomery County. It was our unit in Montgomery County. And we arrested a lot of drug dealers, but sometimes drug users get involved in our investigations, and we arrest them as well. And this is from her affidavit of probable cause. It says, Jane Doe stated that she was on the varsity track team of a high school in Pottstown area where she suffered an injury while running. Her injury required surgery, and she was subsequently prescribed Percocet for her pain. After her recovery, she was able to wean herself off the pain medications. Later, however, while at a party with friends, she tried an Oxycontin pill recreationally. This led to an addiction for which she has yet to recover. Jane Doe stated that she was supplied heroin by several local dealers, but mostly the defendants in this case. Jane Doe was in possession of 7 small bags containing off-white powder believed to be heroin. 4 of the bags were stamped with the words, certain death. How ironic. Jane Doe stated that she has been buying heroin for 1.5 to 2 years. I also like sharing this. This occurred on December 15th of 2015. And this is from a Berks County case that our office did. And this is the Honorable Judge Keller at a sentencing hearing of Jamie Acosta. And he goes on to say, it's his sentence, and he goes, Mr. Acosta, I'm looking for something that I can mitigate the sentence. And frankly, I don't see anything. You were engaged in this horrible, horrible criminal organization that was selling drugs. And I've told this to everybody that's involved in the delivery of heroin. To me, it's like it's murder, because people die from heroin. I didn't hear from your attorney tell me, or neither did you tell me, that you were an addict. And you were doing this stuff because you were an addict as well. I hear that all the time. This is pure and simple greed. Pure and simple. It's insidious. And I know that the big debate going on about what to do with these quote, unquote, non-violent offenders, and they throw in drug dealers as well. And the reason why I just, when you deal heroin, as I said, you're dealing with what is eventually a murder. So to me, and unfortunately, the only thing I can do with you, Mr. Acosta, is put you away for a long, long time. He was sentenced to 15 to 35 years. He was a violent street offender. Who is that? Jimi Hendrix. So when I speak to a younger audience, I have to play somebody different because they don't know who Jimi Hendrix is. But how did Jimmy die? Overdose. What do you overdose from? LSD? What else? Heroin? Ah, drugs and alcohol. What kind of pills? Berks, a prescription drug. Okay? The reason why I have Jimi Hendrix here, and I can talk about an hour and a half with just Jimmy himself, about his military career and all that. But the reason I have him here is most people assume because Jimi Hendrix was very vocal and known to experiment with everything under the sun. It's said that when he performed in concerts on stage, he had LSD in his handkerchiefs on his head, right? But knowing that he's tried everything under the sun, what got him and killed him was prescription drugs. Prescription drugs, good medicine, bad practice. According to the DA, more than 7 million Americans abuse prescription drugs each day. And each day, about 2,500 teens use prescription drugs to get high for the first time. Such drugs are found where? Home medicine cabinet. This is the most recent victim, Prince. He was treated for overdose of Percocet on April 15th, and they treated him with Naloxone or Narcan, excuse me. And then 6 days later, he dies from a fentanyl overdose, which fentanyl is a synthetic opioid.
Caltagirone was a high school football star who led his team to the New Jersey State Championship. And at 6'6" and 300 pounds, was fielding scholarship offers from colleges.
I was always that kid that was just always energetic, did whatever I could to get the win, and just tried to help out anywhere I could. Yeah, I had the world in my hands.
Until, during a routine drill, he tore a ligament in his thumb.
I immediately went straight to the hospital, and that's when they did surgery. I remember the first painkiller that they gave me, I felt really good. I actually felt very calm. I felt a sense of confidence that I never felt before. I knew yeah. And slowly but surely, I started taking more and more and more. And then once the doctor got me off, I started.
Caltagirone had become hooked on opioids, the main ingredient in pills like Percocet and Vicodin. The good news was that buying them off the streets was too expensive to do for long. The bad news, Caltagirone found a cheap alternative, a drug with the very same active ingredient. They had heard of it.
I was going 50 to 100 bucks an hour a day. Yeah. You're going to buy a pill, it's anywhere from $30 to $35, and heroin, I was getting for about $2 to $3 a day. Once I met heroin, I mean, it was just, that became my new passion.
In recent years, heroin has made inroads into a much different community. People with healthy bodies and minds, young athletes. They are more likely to be given opioid pills than other kids, and 3 times more likely to abuse them, research shows. And when the pills run out, many are finding their fix in a drug that suddenly seems everywhere.
It was cheaper than the pills, but today it's like heroin is so, it's everywhere. And especially in the white suburban neighborhoods, it's where it is the most.
This is the worst drug addiction in the United States, heroin-based. And it's largely caused by the medical community.
Andrew Kalati is the head doctor of a nationwide drug treatment agency called Phoenix House. He works there with heroin addicts and says nearly all of them started with painkillers, especially addicts. What's the reason that young people who are addicts are addicted to heroin?
They injure themselves and they're more likely to be prescribed an opioid. And once addicted, many are going to switch over to heroin because it's much more cost effective. And the effects that they produce in the brain are anticipated. When we talk about painkillers, we're essentially talking about heroin.
So the conversation started here nationally, Berks County and nationally, about heroin overdose, addiction, and the deaths associated with it. Well, look at the statistics here. If you look, drug overdose deaths in Berks County 2013, there was actually one more death contributed to prescription drugs, either accidental or suicide, to prescription drugs than there were heroin, for a total of 47. And then in 2014, the following year, we had 25 deaths attributed to prescription drugs, whether it's accidental or suicide, and 29 deaths associated with heroin overdose. Because of this problem, our state legislator acted again in a very good manner, and they passed this, Senate Bill 1180. And what it basically is a prescription drug monitoring program, which the state of Pennsylvania never had, but now we do. It's being implemented as we speak. But I want to share this statement from a physician. He's actually the lead physician for, his name is Bruce McCloyd, a medical doctor. He's the president of the Pennsylvania Medical Society, and he's also practices medicine in an ER up in Pittsburgh. And this is what he said. He said, more people die from prescription drug overdoses than those involved in car accidents. Making matters worse, Pennsylvania physicians, who are more than willing to help fight the prescription drug abuse crisis, must do so with one hand tied behind their backs. Currently, Pennsylvania physicians lack an important tool that could help them better determine if the patient they're examining is a drug addict, doctor shopping, or a person with legitimate pain. What they lack is access to a controlled substance database, also known as a prescription drug monitoring system. This crisis is why the Pennsylvania Medical Society started its Pills for Ills, Not Thrills campaign more than a year ago. Pennsylvania physicians know that they can play a powerful role in addressing this crisis. Now's the time to give them the tool they need. And I can tell you on a personal note, it is changing in the medical field. As you saw when I walked in, I have gray hair. That happens to be because I have 2 teenage daughters. I'm only 25 years old. But it's been about a year now. Both my daughters had to have their teeth removed, wisdom teeth. So my wife took them to the oral surgeon, and I had the luxury of picking them up. So I get there, and this young doctor comes out to me and he says, sir, he goes, they're going to be in a lot of pain, and I'm willing to prescribe Vicodin for them, but only under your permission. So I discussed with my daughters, and we decided, we probably don't need it. And he goes, okay. He goes, if you change your mind, no, I will prescribe, but I have a policy. I only do it for 3 days at a time. So the message is getting out there. The doctors are starting to get the message that they have a hand in this as well. So August 27 of 2015, this is a Reading Eagle headlines, but our DA announced that more police in Berks County are starting to carry naloxone, which is Narcan, which is I actually have some in my car right now. All our guys have it. A lot of the police departments are starting to carry it. Some school districts carry it. And so it saved lives, no doubt about it. And our DA is actually footing the bill to allow our first responders to gain the training and access to naloxone and Narcan. Also, what our office has done is, many people heard of this, is the medication drop box program. It was started in 2013 by COCA, which is the Council on Chemical Abuse, and our office, the Berks County DA. And basically, it's a mailbox, and you get to drop your medication in there. And what's good about it is that last year, 2015, we collected 7,420 pounds, which was a 29% increase from the year prior. A lot of it is scheduled controlled substances, opioids. A lot of this stuff is getting off the street. We don't want this stuff out there. If you're not using it, get it to one of these locations. They're either on our website, or COCA's website. There's a handful of departments that have them. They're usually in the lobby area of the police department. No questions asked. You walk in there, just like you're revealing a letter, you put your drugs in there, and we dispose of them. No, we can't flush them down the toilet. It's environmentally unsafe. But anyways, I'll end this with this. If you guys have a pen or...
It is continuing to increase, and most importantly, this problem is not concentrated in the inner city. It's not concentrated in our suburb. It's concentrated everywhere. It's not suburbia, it's everywhere. As you will know, when you have seen a lot of newspaper articles around here, we've had a huge problem in the Topton area. Topton, beautiful rural area of our county, and they have been inundated with heroin problems. So we want to give you a little bit of background of this problem, and I'm going to turn most of this over to Detective Leparacci, who's working on the street each and every day to arrest the people who are supplying our kids, our grandkids with heroin, and they're ending up dead. I've said a long time ago we can't arrest ourselves out of this problem. This is a problem where we could build 100 million jails and spend all your money, and that would just be flushing it down the toilet. We can't arrest our way out of this problem. We got to have a three-pronged approach: education and prevention, treatment and enforcement. We have to continue to enforcement. We got to arrest the dealers, but the people who are just using, they need treatment, and we need to educate them to prevent them from using heroin, opiates, or any of those other drugs. So I will now turn this over to Detective Leparacci of our District Attorney's Detective Unit, and just a renowned drug cop in our county. Pat was with Reading Police for many years. He was also with the DEA and has been with my office for about the past 8 years. So, Pat Leparacci.
Good evening. First, we appreciate the offer to be considered to be speakers to this organization. And when John asked me to speak here, I obviously said yes, because he's my boss, and then upset. But the one thing, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a cop for 25 years. I started out in the streets of Philadelphia. 1994, I came to the streets of Reading. I was a street cop for 5 years. Then I was chosen to go to the Drug Enforcement Administration. It was supposed to be a one-year assignment. That one-year assignment spanned 5 years. I investigated drug dealers on a national and international level, did undercover work, you name it. And then, one day, I get hired by John Adams, and I'm currently in charge of the Berks County Drug Task Force. And I remember the day when we were in a press conference, and my boss said, "We can't arrest ourselves out of this." I'm like, what did he just say? And I didn't want to, come out and say anything, because we're in a public setting. I'm like, what the hell did he just say? You can't arrest us. He just, he's a bunch of guys up front here. That's exactly what we've been trying to do our whole careers, arrest ourselves out of this. And then that night I went home and I sat back and I thought about it. He's damn right. You know what? Because the problem just keeps getting worse, it seems like. No matter how many people we arrest, it just keeps getting worse. And one thing I just want to spell, just to get a clarifier here. We do not engage in a war on drugs on users, okay? What we do is we try to target violent offenders, those gun-toting drug dealers. That's our #1 target. And then criminal organizations. That's what our office does. We look at the big picture, we take out the big dealers.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police who investigate crime and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
Who recognizes him? Most people do. I can tell you, when I started doing this presentation, most people did not recognize him, but as time is going on, most people recognize him. I apologize, this isn't behaving as it should.
Doubled in 5 years. 700,000 people needing help tonight. And everyone who loved Philip Seymour Hoffman is looking back at the recent pictures of him for clues for the warning signs. And you know if it was someone you loved. ABC's Cecilia Vega now with a very personal story reaching across so many lives.
It all seems so normal. The last day of Philip Seymour Hoffman's life. Coffee in his New York neighborhood, dinner with friends. But it would be his last because of the unrelenting pull in that demonic drug, heroin.
I did everything I could.
Those who tried it say depression, anger, sadness, all gone in heroin's intense euphoria. Actor Russell Brand described it like this. It transforms a tight white fist into a gentle brown wave. The rush hits within seconds. After just 30 minutes, heroin can knock you out cold.
There's a tendency to be just kind of going to sleep in the middle of a sentence.
The high wears off after a few hours.
You can be a functioning heroin addict. We see it all the time.
To spot a hidden user, there are clues. Those heart-stopping 3 Ps of heroin. Paraphernalia, look for spoons, needles, foil. Personality changes, like increased irritability, theft, and physical effects, track marks, small pupils. I know those signs. My father was a heroin addict. You see, this is where the story gets personal. I want to tell you about this man, my dad, Raul. Those good looks, that smile, he could have been whatever he wanted to be. Instead, he shot up.
He was a heroin addict before I was born. He was a heroin addict when I was a child, and ultimately it got the best of him.
I knew when he was high. I could see the track marks, too.
I think my father's drug addiction has really made me who I am today. You try to be everything that that person couldn't be. He never got to see what became of me and my brother, and I think he would be really proud to see us now.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, the new face of this formidable enemy, also leaving behind family, children, and friends to greet heroin's suffocating grip.
And Cecilia is here now. I know it's tough to talk about something so close to your life.
Yeah, it's strange to see my father on TV, but you know what, Diane, I'm really glad to share this story because I know that it's so many families just like mine out there, supportive, loving families that learn to live and cope with addiction in our lives.
There's no barriers, and on the increase, these numbers.
You know, you mentioned the number of heroin users. The number of heroin-related deaths are up to 27,000 people killed because of heroin over the last 10 years. And it's not just that, the power of this drug, we said it in the story, is gripping. You can try it, doctors tell us, and 2 weeks later can become hooked after that first time using it.
Well, thank you again, Cecilia, for this really important report.
So I showed that video. It's kind of a lengthy video, but I think it's very well done for a few different reasons. Number one, because of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Here we have an example of an individual that has attained what most people think that is in life, very successful individual. Fame, wealth, family, and guess what? He gave it all up for that addiction. He was chasing that addiction, and he finally succumbed to that addiction by overdosing. Also, I tend to speak to a lot of teenagers, and I think that message where Cecilia Vega talks about her own family, specifically her father being an addict, I think that sends a pretty good, strong message that although an individual in your family, whether a sibling, a parent, is an addict, that does not put a stigma on you because she's overcome that, has become a very successful ABC News reporter. I'm just going to stand over here for a while. So this article was written, showed up in the newspaper on WFMZ, actually on TV, on January 20th, 2014. And I use it because it sends a very powerful message here, and I think it sums it up real well. It says, Reading, Pennsylvania, heroin will steal your soul. It's the first thing addicts think about when they wake up. It's the last thing they remember before they pass out. Heroin is a demon of a drug with a growing demand that leads many people down a tragic path and ends many promising young lives. It's an alarming trend infecting the entire country, including Berks County. Heroin is probably one of the most potent drugs that I've ever encountered through my career on how it affects people, said Liberace. Heroin is hijacking the lives of teenagers, young adults, middle-aged professionals, and even the elderly. It's an equal opportunity destroyer that tears families apart. Unfortunately, here in Berks County, it's fairly easy to obtain. So does anyone recognize that? No? I hope not, because that is what heroin looked like back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. See, back then, not many people know that it was actually sold by Sears Roebuck Company. And it was sold, you could buy it right out of the catalog. It was sold back then and marketed as a cough suppressant. But what's important to know is that back then, the cough suppressant heroin was only 2 to 5% pure heroin. The rest was filler. And we'll learn why that's important here shortly. But society later learned about the negative health effects of heroin. And in 1914, distribution of heroin was controlled by the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act. 1924, Congress banned it, the importation, distribution, and sale and manufacturing. And then finally, in 1970, Congress made heroin illegal and labeled it a controlled one substance. And I can tell you that 1970 law is still on the books, and that's what we use every day. As a matter of fact, this is why I'm dressed the way I am today. I'm not in a suit, because we are actually arresting people this morning in the city of Reading. We're kicking in doors, arresting a pretty violent drug dealer. But that 1970 law is what allows us to operate. And a Schedule I drug, what that means is it has no legitimate use. There's no medicinal purpose for it whatsoever. So, I can tell you, it's more plentiful than it's ever been here in Berks County and throughout the country. It's cheaper than it's ever been. The Mexican cartels are flooding our markets with heroin. Cocaine is not as abundant as it used to be. And the price of heroin over the past 5 years has been slashed more than half, while the price of cocaine has doubled. It's more potent than it's ever been. And I can tell you, when we seize drugs in Berks County, we send them to the lab and they tell us the purity of it. So currently, the purity average is 64%, but it can fluctuate between 36 and 87% pure. And so that's important to know, because why do you think that's important for us to know that? Exactly. So I had the opportunity to work undercover work, and I purchased heroin many, many times as an undercover officer, portraying myself either as a user or a middle dealer or a supplier. And I can tell you, it doesn't come with real labels. As a matter of fact, some of the people I dealt with, although they were intelligent people, they were street smart, they were not educated. So when a user goes to buy heroin, it doesn't tell you what the purity is. And just as important, it doesn't even tell you what's in it. You're taking a gamble that there's actually heroin in it, let alone the purity of it. So one day you go to your neighborhood dealer and he gives you 36% pure, and the next day you go to 87, what do you think is going to happen? Exactly. Not a good day. Higher profit margins than ever, and sustainable. What do I mean by sustainable? What I mean by sustainable is this. Again, many of these drug dealers that we deal with are not educated, but they're not dumb. They know that once they have an addict hooked on their product, that addict is going to be there day in, day out. They don't care how they make that money, whether it's stealing from a family member, breaking into cars, committing burglaries, whatever. They know that that addict's going to be there day in and day out. And there's increased demand for various reasons I wouldn't touch in, and the senator touched in it as well. Does anyone recognize that? Believe it or not, that's what we call eggs or fingers of heroin. And that top left picture is, they're about 10 grams each. And what they basically look like is a finger of heroin, but it's wrapped in latex. Anyone want to guess why that's wrapped in latex? Swallowed, right? Body carry. So they pay individuals to fly to other countries, and then you fly back in on body carry. And the bottom right picture, I like showing this picture because I never forget this procedure right here. It occurred in 500 block of Walnut Street in the city of Reading. We kicked in the door, and we had our canine dog ready to come sniff after we, to come find these drugs. But I can tell you, we didn't need that canine dog because, for lack of a better word, that guy just pooped them out. We knew exactly, just follow the smell. That's exactly what they did. It just secreted them in their body, flew into JFK, was driven to right here in Reading, Pennsylvania, 500 block of Walnut Street. Anyone recognize that? That's a Jeep Grand Cherokee, right? Who has a Jeep Grand Cherokee?
That's under the back seat.
This is Detective Apparachi from Berks County District Attorney's Office. This is a black 2006 Jeep Grand Cherokee, which was seized relative to a search warrant, and we located a secret compartment within the back end of the Jeep. The compartment is operated electronically. We couldn't figure out the sequence, but we found the non-factory wires underneath the rug, cut the wires, and connected a power source to engage the truck.
That is not a factory option.
As you can see, the truck is large enough to hold contraband. And reverse polarity to close the compartment.
So, truth be told, that's a crappy video. I'm stumbling all over my words, camera's shaking, right? The reason that is, this video was never meant for this audience. This was meant for in-house training, because this car has been up and down our highways, it had tickets, it's been pulled over, and I forget how many, it was 100-some thousand miles, it's a newer Jeep. That's all this car was used for, is trafficking drugs up and down our highways. That is a very good compartment, very difficult to find, and when my boss, John Adams, found out about it, he said, why are we not showing this to people to show what we're up against? This is one car that we haven't seen, and I forget what was in it. It was a lot of drugs, a lot of money. That's what we're up against. So that's what heroin looks like. Top left is a packet of heroin that sells for $10. It has about 300 of a gram of heroin in it. And if you take a dollar bill and you put it on a digital scale that weighs a gram, our US currency actually weighs 1 gram, okay? So if you cut that down into 100 pieces, take 3 of those out, that's what it weighs. That's how minute it is, and it'll cost you $10. I don't know what happened to those pictures. Bottom left are bundles of heroin. That's how they're sold in Reading, or throughout Berks County, I should say. We're buying drugs almost in every corner of Berks County, unfortunately. But they cost, if you buy the entire 10, it can range from anywhere from $40 to $100, depending on where you buy it. What's behind all this? I can tell you Mexican drug cartels. I know that for a few different reasons. Number one is, I would say about maybe longer, about 10 years ago, it would be unheard of for us here in Berks County to be locking up members of Mexican drug cartels. I can tell you that has changed. I don't want to say constantly arrest or deal with Mexican members. We answer the phone, but we have a secretary that does, and I field most of the complaints. So if there's anything that you don't want to talk about tonight, or you have information that you think could be helpful in the fight against getting these drugs off the street, call that number. We're very responsive. Again, I appreciate the invitation from the district attorney's office. I saw you were very attentive, and if you guys ever need any assistance in your community when it comes to education prevention, we have resources that we work with hand in hand that we can guide you to who to look for and actually get some more education on the subject. Again, thank you.
We're going to open it up to Q&A. If anybody has a question for John or for Sergeant Leveracci. Both?
Yeah, very good.
Good, okay. Or Tom Caltagirone, question there? Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Put your hand up. Sir. My name's Carl, and I am convinced that we must be much tougher on the drug pushers and the people from Mexico, and we got to put them in jail for much more time than what we're letting them get away with.
We appreciate that, and we are working towards that, but I can tell you that the sentences that are being served have gotten a little different from what they were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, because mandatories have been ruled unconstitutional. So, and that was not really, that was kind of a local Pennsylvania Supreme Court case. But if they're involved in drug distribution, they're getting some serious sentences. They are.
Another question over here.
Good evening to the sergeant. On the mod squad in 69, I believe it was, 1969, the lead actor Michael Cole did a public announcement after a show about heroin, asking people to get help for it. So the heroin problem actually started in the 30s with the music industry, the jazz musicians. So have you guys been asleep for the past 80 years on this, or why are you bringing it to our attention now? Is it just because it's an economic, we're losing it the battle economically? And you said that Mexico's bringing the drugs, but they also, our government said that they were the problem of our assault weapons, but actually our federal government was giving them the assault weapons. And the heroin problem, does our federal government allow heroin in from Afghanistan, because that's part of our Middle East policy with them?
Well, our heroin problem has exploded in the United States. A lot of the experts put the onus on the fact that the pharmaceutical companies have flooded the market with opioids, and when a person can't get the opioid medicine like OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet, then they go to heroin. So that is what's caused a lot of the explosion in the number of heroin cases that we're seeing, and we're also seeing the Mexican cartels are flooding our market. So clearly, we need to do something about Mexico. That's a definite.
Question in the rear here.
Well, it's not really a question, it's a comment. I have a whole bunch of different medical problems, and being on narcotics actually was covering one of the main ones, which was a neuromuscular disease. And I got to the point where I was not feeling like myself after being on prescribed narcotics, taking them as they were prescribed for several years. And I just one day decided I'm not doing this anymore. And my doctor wanted me to go off slowly, weaning down. And I was just so frustrated about the situation and how I felt that I went cold turkey and went to a hospital and said, just keep me comfortable. I don't want any more narcotics. And I came to research the disease that they did find, the neuromuscular disease that was causing most of the pain, and found a program with IVs that now I get every 4 months for a week that take away enough of my pain that I can function and think straight. And I have an alternative now that if they would have just kept giving me, and I would have allowed them to keep giving me narcotics, I would have been not functioning in life and not out doing things and not having value in my life. But I kept pushing forward to find something different. And I'm just wondering how much of that could happen for other people. I persevered, and my doctor learned a whole lot about with the situation with me and how he prescribes narcotics. He looks at things a lot differently now than when he did prescribe quite a large amount.
Okay, lady.
So, I just encourage doctors sometimes offer me stuff and I just decline it. So they look at me kind of funny, but I just won't.
Right there. Stand up, sir.
Hey, I want to applaud you for what you do. I work for drug and alcohol rehab. Thank you, I work for criminal justice, and the question that was asked here, I've been in it for 38 years. In the 80s, you had the cocaine phenomena. The heroin growers tried to take back their market, which they did effectively by making it cheaper and more potent. Okay? The stuff is now grown in Mexico, where it was grown in the East before, and they're bringing it in. We've also unfortunately seen, and I'm sure you gentlemen have seen it, it's laced now with fentanyl, making overdoses crazy. But this is marketing. These people from Mexico, this is marketing. It's cheap, it's purer than you've ever seen before. And I'm glad for the aggressiveness, because I follow you guys in business. But we're now looking at another drug being laced in the heroin. I can't pronounce, but maybe you can, Sergeant. Can the fentanyl? Yes, that's it, which is a sedative for elephants and large animals. In 38 years in this business, I've never seen it that bad.
I think about 20-some people just overdosed in Ohio on that.
Yeah.
In a matter of hours, we have preventive seizure.
They're also putting fentanyl in cocaine now.
Yes, exactly. And fentanyl is killing people left and right. And we are seeing it all the time in our toxicology reports. So fentanyl is very, very, very dangerous.
If we close our Mexican border, how much of this problem will be eliminated?
I think that they bring the drugs in covertly all over the place. And I think that somehow, and I've said this time and time again, we have to get some federal government involvement in some economic sanctions against Mexico, because their own government in Mexico is doing nothing to combat the cartels. We need some help.
Hi. I lost a nephew in February, and I just lost another one July 14th. Both addicted to, started with painkillers, went to heroin, both found behind locked doors, dead by themselves. And what I noticed with both of my sisters, everything was hush-hush. I was actually informed they were doing better, they were in recovery, they were both arrested, you know, went through the jail terms. The one was actually still going through sentencing. And I don't think there's enough support for the families. They don't, they let the kids out of jail. I shouldn't say kids because they were both in their 30s. But I don't think the families, like my sisters, didn't really know how to handle this. It seemed like they were catering to them and doing everything for them. And well, there's no training.
There's a lot of referral, there's a lot of resources out there now. The Council on Chemical Abuse is in Berks County, has a very big educational assistance out there and trying to educate families. You know, we're blessed with the fact that we have Karen Foundation here in Berks County. They've done a lot recently to educate the public. But you're right. I mean, the resources, it's tough. It's costly. Treatment is costly, and it's a tough battle. And especially when you're dealing with treatment for heroin addicts, they don't get cured in 30 days. They don't. It takes a long time, and it's a lengthy effort. We're seeing a lot more medically assisted treatment programs now where they're having addicts get a dosage of a certain type of drug that will turn their brain off from seeking heroin. Vivitrol is I think, the wave of the future, and it is a block. It blocks the craving for heroin. So we're going to see where treatment takes us, but it's cheaper to treat an addict than to throw him in jail. And we want to keep our costs down.
It seems to me like there's a shame, though. They hid a lot. My sisters hid a lot from the rest of the family.
The what?
My sisters.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, the thing is, so many people are now affected by addiction, and I think there's a lot of resources out there now. People are understanding that addiction is a disease, and I think that the public is becoming educated on this, but there's a long learning curve, but it is a disease.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Sir, we got one over here.
Hi, my name's Kimberly, and I have a company called Bloom and Lotus Inc. And I have researched for the last 5 years addiction, and I actually leveraged my entire savings to open an incubator business to employ women in recovery. I also have a son that was labeled with a learning disability of double deficit dyslexia. If I can take just one moment, because once the child becomes entrenched in addiction, it's a runaway freight train. We have to precede the war on drugs with the war on education. The No Child Left Behind came into existence in 2001, where we tried to put square pegs into round holes. These children process differently. They have frontal lobe issues. They don't learn the same way that everybody else does. What happens when they are in a school environment for 8 hours being misunderstood and they can't understand the curriculum? They go home and they self-medicate. And thus begins the cycle. I've seen it with the women that I employ. Most of them would have been labeled ADD, ADHD. When you give them a task that they can tap into, you change that reward system because it's a job well done. It's not the F on the report card. For any veterans around here who understand, I'm sure, what PTSD is and how it takes the person out of their own body and out of their own mind, this is what is happening to our children in the education system. They go in there with such anxiety. Am I going to pass today? Am I going to be called on today? How am I going to explain how stupid I am because I've gotten an F on yet another test, even though I sat there and I tried to do my best? So I consult with families, I consult with kids, and really, if you want to stop this, in my opinion, we have to look at stopping it before it starts, and we need to look at the education system.
Got time for another question? Sure. First of all, thank you very much for coming. I have a question. A friend of mine's son overdosed, he passed away. My question to you, should that family have turned over his cell phone at that time? And if he did, do you need a search warrant for that or what?
Yes, we want that cell phone. And when we respond to overdoses, we generally confiscate the cell phone. We can get into the cell phone. If the person dies, we don't need a search warrant. If the person lives, we generally would need a search warrant to get into the cell phone. But that cell phone is probably the most important factor that we, evidence-wise, that we can utilize to identify the dealers of heroin and other drugs.
Thank you. Any others?
Hi, I have just a few questions. First off, the drug paraphernalia that I've been finding in Temple, what do we do with that? Do we throw it away? Do we take it to the older police? And another thing is the new drug Flocka. That's, they've been finding in Florida. I don't know if you have any information on that for around here. Thank you.
Yeah, Flocka is another synthetic, and it's another attempt to put a narcotics into our market, and it actually, they target college kids with Flocka. But no, we haven't seen it in Berks County. But I can tell you, eventually what's happening on nationally ends up in Berks County. But on the other matter with the paraphernalia, it depends. So if you're finding paraphernalia at certain places all the time, I would call Muhlenberg Police, or wherever you live, that police department. Every police department in the county has a drug task force officer assigned to it, or they know how to get a hold of us. I'm sorry. But so if you're finding it or you suspect a house, but if it's just like a bag or something like that, you can pick it up and throw it away. There's not much we can do with that. There's not much follow-up we can do with it. But if you suspect a house, an individual, a car, certain meeting locations, you let an officer know, they know how to get a hold of us.
Any other questions? One more? We have one more. Where is it?
Hi, my name is Jimmy Eric. I think something like what they, I lost my husband over a year ago. But I had 2 pills, 2 days of pills, both done in November. The Oxycontin and morphine. And he had that thing one of the gastroenterologist doctor, and they gave him that. And after that, with all this stuff, and also he was sent on March 2nd. And I went and talked to the lady at the hospital with the palliative care, and she said, well, when was he getting all these drugs and that? And she didn't think he was ready to die, but he did. And I need to take an opioid and for arthritis because 4 years ago I almost died by the medicine I took. Put a hole in the vein of my colon, and I can't take any NSAIDs, so I have to take Norco.
Some people do need to take it, but it's, if it's not abused, it's okay. It's when it's abused. All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your attention, and we appreciate educating the public at any time. It's very important that you learn about this problem. Thank you.
And we would like to thank John and Sergeant Liberace and give them a big round of applause for what they do. And just remember, folks, everybody sitting in this room, it's true, somewhere you're affected by this. Even if it's just somebody you know. And don't be afraid to speak up. I have in the past. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be talking to this gentleman afterwards of something I know. Or something I suspect in a certain place. And that's what you need to do too. In my nature of business, getting really lost all the time, especially elderly. We run into elderly people who are prisoners in their own home, and they won't say what that neighbor across the street is doing. Because they're scared to death that that night that neighbor's going to come across there and do something to them. And we really got to get over that fear. I'm sorry, but if we don't say something, things are going to happen that you're not going to like around you. So, this time we'd like to close this meeting in prayer. Could you all join me, please? Gracious Heavenly Father, we do thank you and praise you for this opportunity we've had to come together. We thank you for this men and the battle they do every day. Things we don't even know, Father, but they're out there battling on the streets. Keep them safe, especially in the atmosphere we have today where there's no respect for law enforcement, Father. We just pray you keep all of our officers safe. Keep them focused on the job. Don't put them in situations where things are going to happen to them, but let them do their jobs, Father. And I pray that the society we have will overcome this problem going on now with not respecting authority, that we could turn this situation around. Again, I pray for our soldiers, men and women all over the world, Father. They need your protection, your guidance, and your mercy on them. And Father, we just thank you and praise you that you're in control of all things. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you all.
Folks, just a reminder, in memory of Jake Bender, the table back there is all free. Please take them. There's bracelets there. You might want for your children and grandchildren. Just help yourself.
Hey, if you could, I would like your attention 1 second. Everybody. I need to make a serious announcement here. With the loss of Jake and some other people, I know we appeal to this all the time, and I am being very serious when I tell you we need help. We are going to be down to 5 board members come January. This organization will not survive if people in this room don't step up and help a little bit. There are people working overtime on the board. Jake did so much. He didn't just sell shirts. Jake did so much behind the scenes. We miss him dearly. He was my friend, but we need help. And come January, we've been discussing as a board if we're going to be able to continue this organization. So I want you to search your heart and see if you can step up and do a little something to help the board. It could be as simple as putting together the monthly newsletter. That's one thing that needs to be done. Jake did it all the time. He was great at it. You know, it could be making the phone calls like Linda asked. There's a million things need to be done. You just don't realize the work it takes to put on this meeting every month. So please search your hearts and get a hold of one of us and please step up. Thank you.